A very good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to all. I, Dr. Pallavi Saxena, iLeaps SSC member, and Dr. Samina, iLeaps IPO, welcomes you all on our fifth episode of iLeaps Global Colicom series. So, with a very good response received from the earlier episodes that we started from 2022, 2023, 24, 25. So now we are started with 2026 also. So this is our fifth episode, and we are very welcome you all to continue with this series. So before I go further, first of all, I will introduce you briefly about what the iLeaps is. So iLeaps is Integrated Land Ecosystem Atmosphere Processes Study, which is a global research project of Future Earth. iLeaps provides understanding of how interacting physical, chemical, biological processes transport and transform energy and matter through the land atmosphere interface. So the prime purpose of this colloquium is to introduce the scientific community with the distinguished and significant work of eminent scientists from different parts of the world. It is a very bright opportunity, particularly for early career researchers, to establish the bridge between the ideas and knowledge through this platform. So today's episode speaker is Professor Luis Augusto Toledo Machado, who is a group leader, Institute of Physics, University of Sao Paulo, Brazil. He holds a bachelor's and master's degree in meteorology from the University of Sao Paulo and a PhD from Université de Paris. He has held visiting research positions at NASA, GISS, and the Laboratoire de Météorologie Dynamiques, France. After retiring from the National Institute for Space Research in 2020, he remains active as a researcher at the Institute of the Physics of the University of Sao Paulo and as a visiting researcher at the Max Planck Institute for Chemistry. His research focuses on remote sensing, cloud processes, and tropical convection, with particular emphasis on Amazon region. He has played a leading role in major field campaigns and international projects, contributing to advances in the understanding of precipitation systems, aerosol cloud interactions, and atmospheric processes in tropical environments. Professor Machado has a highly productive scientific career with over 100 peer-reviewed publications, significant scientific impact, and extensive collaboration in international research networks. He has supervised numerous graduate students and postdoctoral researchers and contributed to the development of satellite-based observational systems. He has held key leadership roles in national and international programs and received several honors, including awards from WMO, NASA, and the Peter Murray Foundation. So today he would put light on a very important topic, how weather events modify particles and gas concentration in Amazon forest. So now I again welcome Professor Lewis to put some light on this very significant topic in atmospheric sciences. Now the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Dr. Pallavi and Dr. Simna. I would like to thank iLeaps in the behavior of your names. Thank you for the invitation. Let me share my screen. It's been shared in presentation
Yeah.
mode?
Yes.
Okay. So, I would, this talk for iLeaps, I think that's very appropriated because as iLeaps integrate land ecosystems and atmosphere process, that's exactly what's going on happening in Amazon is the connection between forest and atmosphere that create this light, rainfall, and several of the topics that I will discuss. So let me give just a motivation that there are more than 200 hundreds of papers discussing about how is the effect of aerosol on cloud and rainfall. That is we call the green ocean for the Amazons, green ocean clouds, the Amazons, because it's a kind of homogeneous vegetation and convection everywhere. But they show that actually it's homogeneous, but it's quite different from one tree to another. But that's the interaction between aerosol, cloud, and rainfall was extensively studied. And we, let me, trying to move on that. That was just. So that's this interaction between aerosol and cloud droplets is clear explained this table when you have in the left side the number of droplets and the number of aerosol. So there is a very well established relationship between aerosol and droplets. So this is what we call the aerosol regime. But as soon as you hit a very high concentration of aerosols, you don't have any more kind of linear relationship. You go to the updraft regime. That is depends from the updraft that's impacting supersaturation and then in the activation of cloud. So we have we still have several papers describing this. But what I will discuss today is in the other side, how rainfall and cloud modify the aerosol and gas. So in the other way around. That is quite important, and I will try to explain this for different perspectives. First of all, I will discuss about the long-range transport. Particles, just say that I will speak specifically about the Amazonia. So that is the long-range transport is mainly the transport from the Africa to South America. I also talk about how clouds modify gases and help to produce particles in the upper troposphere, as well how the forest help to produce these particles. But before to start, I will talk a little bit about the ATO site. That is our main experimental site when you collect data and have extensive measurements, different measures. Here is it's a presentation of the ATO tower that is being done by drone. So it's the real one. You can see the forest below, the green ocean of trees, and the very high 325 meters towers that take like 1 hour. On the right side, you see the clouds being measured during the day on the top of the cloud. Now it has a fogging in the and so you can see that the trees has different colors, means that is still we say that is nearly the same. Oh, here you can see the other tower is the 80 meters tower. That is the old tower that we have there. And this taken from farther away, and you can see the river on the upper side. That's not the Amazon's river, it's the Watuman rivers. And so this is the ATO site observatory that mainly did measure the aerosol chemistry, microphysics, but we miss some information about the clouds. And so we designed a new site very close to this one, but when you look, you say, hey, that is another place because you have this kind of sandy soil and the trees are low, but that is only 4 kilometers far from Ato. And I was choosing because it's mostly remote sensing instrumentation, so you need to have this open region to have the measurement. And so you have a cloud radar, the radar ring profile, field mill to measure electricity, the disdrometer to measure the drop size distribution. So we have a lot of instrumentation, much more connecting for the atmospheric science. So with these two sites you can see here, that is the Ato Tower and this orange star, and 5 kilometers away is the Ato Campina site. That is kind of the sandy soil, possibly old riverbed. And you see this arrow, blue arrow is the position of the Ato Tower, you can see here. This is a small tower we have. This vegetation actually is called Campinara. It's a geographical way to call this kind of vegetation that some people say that the Amazonas can move to Campinara or to Cerrado or the different types. Nobody really knows exactly how Amazonas will move. We hope that's not going to move, stay as forest. And so I will start with the discussion about the long branch transport, how weather event modified this long branch transport. So you can see that we have volcanic emissions, fire from Africa, and dust from the Sahara that reach the Amazonia. You can see in the right side this paper of Koch 2023 that there is 8.5 teragrams per year of deposition of dust reaching the Amazonas. And why it's important is because this transportation, it's transportation of gas, particles, black carbon, and also phosphorus. Phosphorus, you can see here in this paper that phosphorus is very important for the fertilization of Amazonian soil. And there is a productivity, phosphorus limitation productivity, and that's the availability. It's associated with the carbon uptake by the forest. So that's very important, this transport that's from Africa by dust, by nitrogen, by phosphorus, by black carbon. So this transport is very important. So when you see how this transport occurs, this is a transept over the Atlantic Ocean, and the orange is the layer where you have this aerosol being transported over the ocean above the boundary layer. And then when you go to the South America, you can see this transept 2A to T3. And here is the transept. You can see at about 800 hectopascal, the Amazonian's low-level jet. This Amazon's low-level jet is the main mechanism to transport all this dust and also the aerosol and the water vapor for convection in Amazons. So these are what they call atmospheric rivers, but I prefer to call aerosol and water vapor rivers. So this low-level jet is very important. And then this pumping inside the Amazon, all these minerals. However, when you are at the Ato, this is the daily variation. This is just an example from January. These are results published this year. That you can see in red, this fluctuation of black carbon. I use black carbon here as a proxy because you have the instrumentation that measures with very high resolution. If you collect dust, you need to collect the dust, send to the lab, and this is instrumentation that measure in real time. So you see this big fluctuation of black carbon during the wet season. The wet season, the atmosphere is very clear, but sometimes it's more polluted, sometimes clean, sometimes polluted. This variation, it's something that we didn't understand. We try to understand why you have this fluctuation in this transportation, in this case, specifically cases the black carbon in Amazonia. And so we calculate the back trajectories to see if it was the different source. But no, it's the same back trajectory. The only you see that the polluted case has higher density in the trajectory, indicating a longer path of particles, but the direction is the same. So we trying to look, so what could be the reason for this fluctuation, and you look for the precipitation. And this is at Atu, the precipitation 3 days before we measure, and we can clearly see that during the clean case, you have a lot of precipitation, large amount of precipitation in the last 3 days compared to the polluted days when you have very few precipitation. So this precipitation actually modulate how the amount of these gas, particles, minerals that penetrate inside the Amazon, how far this precipitation. And when you look, we made a composite, you can see this all this blue area, it's corresponded to the to the anomaly from clean and polluted. So there is a big anomaly in South America during the wet season, that's in interdiurnal fluctuation that modulate how the amount of these particles and gas inside the Amazon. These results go further because I analyze the reason of this anomaly, but I will not go in the details because it starts to be further away from our matter, but it's a hemispheric configuration associated with the large-scale synoptic system. Anyway, this is anomaly control the long-range transport in Amazon. It's the reason for this anomaly of long-range transport. So now I will talk about how the weather event modified the trace gas in Amazon's boundary layer. Because we measure in the tower, this concentration of gas, you can see here the CO2 and below the ozone. And on the right side here, you can see at 11 that there is a peak of rainfall. So you have the rainfall here. You have the turbulence kinetic energy. So this is the moment we have the rainfall. When you go to look the concentration from 300 meters to the surface for the CO2, you clearly see a modification of around here 30 ppm, 30 ppm is modifying one rain event that you bring clean air from the upper troposphere, in this case of rainfall, clean air from the upper troposphere to the surface. Here in the surface, you have different cases. I will discuss in more details in the next transparency, but you can clearly see this modification of gas due to the rainfall. At the same time, you can see the ozone here. You can see the increase in ozone concentration. So when you have a rainfall event, you have a decrease in CO2 concentration and an increase in ozone concentration very strong. Here is a composite for the day, the left side, in the night, in the right side, for CO2, CO, and methane. And here is the zero. Zero corresponds to the moment we have the rainfall. That's a composite. So it's 2 hours before rainfall and 2 hours after the rainfall for all the same as the same composites for all. So let's look the methane. That's easy to explain. This is not the absolute value. It's the total change in the mixed rate during the mean rainfall event. So you have 2 ppb higher, and you have 2 ppb lower, or 4 ppb variation during the rain events. During the day, during the night, the same behavior. For the CO, we see the same, but smaller, 1 ppb to minus 1 ppb. During the night, much stronger, 6 ppb change, but the behavior is near the same. During the day, you see much more close to the surface, a strong variation. For CO2, during the night, the same, you bring free air, but during the day, we see a different behavior, but the variation is very small. It's only 2 ppb. So because you have two cases, you can decrease radiation, decrease photosynthesis, and so decrease the absorption of CO2 by the tree, but at the same time, you can bring air from above. I have an equation that I show in the tails, this different behavior that is important to be very well described, that connected the land to the atmosphere. This is the same figure. This is the time zero before rainfall and the ozone concentration as function of the rain intensity. You see this strong jump in ozone concentration. You can increase up to 4 ppb the concentration for rainfall above 6 millimeter per hour. And this ozone, it's very important. All these configuration I'm showing, besides only the value that change, they also help a lot of different reactions on the surface that can be able to produce other things as the production of particles. You see here a combination of NO, NO2, and that's it's constantly happen, but when you increase ozone, you are increasing the oxidation. And this oxidation, certainly you have an impact in the particle formation. Also, the thunderstorm that has lightning, that's help to produce, you know that lightning produces NOx in the atmosphere. You increase the NOx in the atmosphere, that's important oxidation. I will show how important this oxidation is on the process of formation of new particles. But look in this table, in this figure on the left side, they have the green color. The green color is the ozone concentration, and the blue scale is the rainfall. You see this jump in the increase in ozone concentration as soon as we start to have the rainfall. And when you see the concentration before the maximum and after, as function of the electrification of the atmosphere, here it's volts per meter. It's measured by field mu, is the potential, the different potential between the sun and the cloud. You see that this anomaly in ozone concentration depends from the electricity of the atmosphere. And at larger the amount of the absolute electric field, you have larger variation of ozone. So ozone without lightning, rainfall without lightning, bring ozone by the downdraft, but if this cloud has lightning, you create much more ozone and bring a lot of ozone to the surface, and this can be a strong oxidation process. Also, another important gas that is produced by the forest is the VOC, the volatile organic component. Here I show only isoprene and monoterpene. They also change as function of the rainfall. We have day and night, the same zero time before rainfall, after rainfall. We can see that we decrease the isoprene. Why we decrease isoprene? Because isoprene it's produced with the radiation temperature, and so you decrease the source, but also is consumed to create particle formation. As you are bringing ozone, you create an oxidation of this component and you transform it in secondary organic aerosol. So you see this decrease of isoprene, the same as monoterpene. During the night, it's funny because you see some increase during the rainfall in isoprene inside the canopy. We really don't know exactly, but it seems to be some due to the bacteria isoprene synthesis due to microbial activity on the surface. That is just a hypothesis. And you can see for monoterpene an increasing near the canopy also that is very strong during the night. So these papers from Kim Fassenbeck, they show clear what is going on, the way you can modulate this change of gas from surface, from cloud, that's called the DR, the dynamic range. It's composed by the surface contribution and the atmospheric contribution. And so beta is how it's more important, the atmosphere or the surface contribution. When I see atmosphere is the cloud ventilation, the downdraft, but also the entrainment. And from the surface is the emission, CO2 emission, soil emission of VOC. You can use any of gas this, to understand this equation. And looking for CO2, it's divided on the moment when you have the nocturnal boundary layer. The P2 is the diurnal boundary layer, and when the boundary layer reach the maximum and decrease is the P3. And you can see that during P1, during the night, in the end, is the surface more important, the surface flux that dominates. You can imagine during the night the emission of CO2 by the forest with a boundary layer very small, so this flux increasing concentration. But during when the boundary layer develop, you see that the atmosphere is more important, the flux, that you have the cloud, you have all this convection that modify the gas concentration on the surface. Okay, sorry, I'm going very fast, but let's go. So here is how weather events modify the primary bioaerosol. That is, and I would like to show the fog effect, because in Amazon you have this fog during the wet season. You always have this fog, and we collect these fog samples, and we found out bacteria and fungi, a lot of bacteria and fungi in this fog. That's here is the paper, that's also a paper published this year, that's called the Foggy Harbor. I would like also to say oasis for the bacteria, because what's going on? All the bacteria and fungi, the ultraviolet radiation can kill as well the oxidation. So as soon as you have the water, you are protected from the oxidation and from the ultraviolet radiation, so you can survive. And that is a strong mechanism of biodiversity. You have this protection, and soon as you go, the boundary layer develop, they move this droplet far away, and then you enlarge the characterization and the seeding of this bacteria and fungi all around. So it's an important mechanism that's produced by the fog. You can see also this the sodium that is producing, that helping the sodium is help the chemical production of particles, and so that is very important to the life in Amazon. And here is the ecosystem, just in illustration for the Amazon fog. That's 80,000 microbial cells per milliliter of a fog collector, different species. Fog act as habitat and dispersal way for these microbes, and so climate change could change all this fog. If you increase temperature and so on, you can impact directly on the preservation of this mechanism of biodiversity. That's also, you can imagine, there is also insects and bugs that travel above the boundary layer, that is transport to one region to another, and inside the atmosphere, the cloud droplets, as I mentioned, is a kind of a oasis for these bacteria, and they can survive. I was talking about fog, now I'm talking about cloud, and cloud can pump you up to the upper troposphere, and in the outflow, send these bacteria further away than with the fog. So there is also this important consideration for the primary bioaerosol on the atmosphere. And finally, I'm going to how weather event modify particles in Amazon. That is the production of particles. So let me just start mention that this is the diagram when you have the size of the particles with the time. When you see this ready here, we call a new particle formation. So from small size, they grow to large size. So that is very important, because without particles, if you don't have particles, you don't have CCN, cloud condensation nuclei, you don't have rainfall, because rainfall needs to have particles. So particles is important. Change the radiative budget, but also has a lot of indirect effect as the formation of clouds. So you see this typical description that can be easily seen in boreal forest that we call banana plot. That is the nickname for this formation of particles, is the banana plot. However, you don't see Amazon use banana plots. It's hardly seen. We see, but it's not every day as you see in boreal forest, because in boreal forest you have sulfuric acid, that is an oxidation that easily produces particles. So the conclusion was, no, the Amazon is not able to produce their own particles. And during a critical show in 2014, we measure particles in the upper troposphere. You can see in the right side here, the number of particles per cubic centimeter. We found out kind of 100,000 particles per cubic centimeter in the upper troposphere. Not in the lower troposphere, in the upper troposphere. So that is a mechanism that creates these particles in the upper troposphere. And then at that time, it was considered that these particles during the rainfall, they are brought to the surface by the rainfall, and then they produce these nucleation particles that we found we have in the boundary layer of Amazon. That was the main mechanism of formation. But however, and so this was the conceptual model. You have the particles and how these particles is produced in Amazon. That's the point. This particle, and you had, these particles is produced by the transportation of isoprene by the convection. I will show in more details. But another example you can see during the rainfall is big guys. Here is the size, time, and then during the rainfall, we see smaller guys. So this is the rainfall that brought to the surface these smaller guys. The Amazonas does not produce these particles. It's bring from the upper troposphere. They are produced only in the upper troposphere. So during Café Brazil, the field campaign experimentation in Amazon, we was dedicated to understand the process of new particle formation in the upper troposphere. And there was clear to see that was associated with convection. When you see this big guy, this cloud deck, this mass-scale convective system in the outflow, when you fly in the outflow, you see these peaks of particles just when you cross the outflow, showing that the outflow was advecting the main chemistry production of this to create this particle. I will show in detail how this particle is produced, but before I would like to show in detail how it looks like. You see here 40 kilometers in the upper part is the new particle formation. You see that on the top at 8, 9 morning, you will start to create particles and then they disappear during the day. So that's the mechanism. The process is during the nighttime, we have this strong convection Amazons. This convection Amazons pump up the isoprene and monoterpene that was produced by the forest to the upper troposphere. During the night, there is no photochemistry to consume the isoprene, so isoprene it's stored in the upper troposphere. Also, there is the lightning that produces NOx in the upper troposphere, helping the oxidation process. So as soon as the sun in the early morning, you have the radiation that starts the production of the oxidation and the production of new particle formation. So radiation, more isoprene, more NOx, create these organonitrates that originate the OH that initiate the oxidation of the isoprene that was produced from forest emission, and then you very soon start to have 100,000 particles. That is small particles, 10 nanometers, very small particles. And so they are produced in the outflow, out of the cloud. So we have megatons of isoprene going up by the production. This production occurs outside of the cloud. Then you have radiation, a temperature is very low, and you start the factory, and you produce this banana pot in the upper troposphere, and then this is production UV-CCN in the future. So here I have an example. This paper is also used the ocean, but it's produced by the CERN clouds. It's not the same paper as I was mentioned, but you can see the lightning, the NOx, the isoprene, and so the oxidation products by the sun, and then they grow. And they grow, and then goes to the subsidence, and they arrive in the surface as CCN. So this is the process to create, one of the process to create CCN, and but does not explain we have these nucleation particles, small particles, nanometer particles in the surface as you have. So this process explains you have accumulation mode, 400 nanometers particles that you act as CCN, but not the production in the forest. And so the difference in the way that this particle being transported to the surface should be by the the downdraft, but the downdraft is inside the cloud, much lower. This is produced outside and go by subsidence. So this is further away from Amazon, goes to the Hadley cell. Nobody exactly knows where this particle goes. But some model simulations shows that air particle locating the upper troposphere does not move downward during convective event. There is no 2 hours and you don't see. However, when you are at Yato and you have precipitation, you really see the increase in nucleation particles at this moment. And here is a big example you can see in the right panel. This is the nucleation particles. This is the rainfall. You see this strong increase of nucleation particles and the decrease in height and accumulation. The decrease of these big guys is because they are washed out from the atmosphere. And this was produced during the rainfall. Here you can see that the concentration before and after. You can see that the small guys, the small particles, has larger concentration before, and the big guys has a smaller concentration. So there is washout, but there is the formation of new particle formation Amazons. When you look at 300 meters, we see the decrease of big particles, but you don't see the increase of small particles, sorry? But when you see the small particles, you see a strong increase close to the surface. So the particles are forming on the boundary layer. It's very clear here in this example. You see in red the nucleation particles being formed during the maximum of the rainfall time. You see the ozone, that's the blue line. So you increase ozone, you have isoprene, you have NO2 increasing also. So there is a combination of a chemical process that creates the oxidation and produce new particle formation on the surface. So actually what you see is this profile of particles, a lot of particles in the upper troposphere, and then you have the layer of the cloud process, and you have also maximum in the boundary layer that was produced by the forest itself. In my last transparency, this is a paper that came up just weeks ago that shows when you look this diagram like the way I show, you don't see particle banana plot, but when you apply specific normalization, not go into detail, but it's normalized by each size between 0 and 1, you'll see this banana plot. So this is what you call quite a new particle formation. It's very small, but this particle is produced every time. When there is a rainfall, it's produced much more. And so this is what's going in Amazon. And this is my final transparency that's showing the process that you have a VOC produced by the forest, the ozone by the cloud, and then you increase the production and create new particle formation that you act as CCN in the future. So, in the end, I start to say that aerosol, cloud, and precipitation is the most famous way to study, but actually what you need to understand is that all these together, precipitation, gas, aerosol, and cloud, in all this direction because there is a strong interaction. So model should represent this process on the real life. And so I stop here and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. And we will now open the floor for questions. You actually you can unmute yourself and ask, or you can also type in the chat box.
Ravant is typing something.
Yeah, I just noticed that he's typing, but he can unmute and then ask directly.
Yeah.
Can you see the question in the chat box, Professor?
Yeah.
You may stop sharing if I see that you're still sharing the screen.
Yeah. So I think the question is related to the long range transport in the beginning when I show there is a rainfall anomaly. I took the days when it was polluted and I looked the rainfall in the Amazon, and I took the days when it was clean and produce an average and make the difference. So the anomaly is the anomaly of rainfall during the polluted days minus the clean days. Welcome. Okay, so yes, I can share my presentation. I will send it to Simina and then she can forward. So what the models, do you know that there is, and all I have presented, it's quite new. So there is no model that actually produce, describe, and with fidelity the formation of new particle formation, the upper troposphere. The model is being used more and more, but the interaction between aerosol and rainfall, there are a lot of models. So the particle impact on rainfall and forest. Let me say, what type of model could be used to study the particle impact on rainfall and forest? So, do you know, you can use the WRF, the Mezenach, any of these models to study the impact of aerosol on the rainfall. All models having you need to run the cloud resolving model when the microphysics is explicit with different parameterization of the microphysics. And so we can test this hypothesis. The important is to check if the model produces the aerosol, because some models just consume the aerosol, but and so that's very few models knows how to produce the aerosol, and that's the point. The point is the production of the aerosol that's not well solved yet. Welcome.
I see that Alok is typing. Professor, you're still sharing the screen. You can stop sharing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Um,
Just up. Yeah, that. Right. Yeah. Okay, there is a question from Alok. Can you?
yeah, thank you for your comment. You know what? All I have speak was about the wet season. Wet season is not so polluted, and so the particle formation is very important. So the idea is to have this idea how the pristine forest can produce like pre-industrial area. And so, but when you go for the dry season or urban region with a lot of pollution, you don't need to have this new particle formation, the natural formation, because this is production by the anthropogenic pollution of the environment. And so we have a strong impact on the rainfall anyway, because when you have too much particles, we has a competition for the water vapor available, and so the droplets are very small and you reduce precipitation. Intermittent, no seasonal rainfall events. So that's the point that there is two impacts of the particle on the rainfall. The first one is that you can reduce precipitation by the competition, so we have too many small droplets, and to have the rainfall, you need to have big droplets, and so you have very small, so you don't have the rainfall. However, if there is enough instability or some forcing like topographic feature, and you can develop this cloud will be stronger. So that's called invigoration. So you has an invigoration of thunderstorm because to have too much small particles that you became a lot of small ice, and then you release more latent heat and you produce strong precipitation. So that's the two sides. If you can reduce precipitation or you can intensify by invigoration. I don't know if I answered correctly your question. The anthropogenic pollution increase the particles, nucleation, all sides of particles. So you don't care more about the natural formation. All my talk was based on the natural formation. Yeah, good question. Actually, rainfall wash out, clean up these particles, the big particles. So, but before they need particles to create. So these microplastics, like from tire, from the production by the trucks and cars on the roads, that, for instance, produce a lot of tire particles, they can be used as nucleation particles. But as soon as you have rainfall, the atmosphere is clean. So models now need also to deal with microplastic fragmentation, aggregation in the atmosphere. So yeah, that's it's aerosol process, these particles on the atmosphere. That there is no difference. The difference is the radiative properties. Each one has different radiative properties, absorption, scattering, and then this should be done in lab to understand the characteristic of each one. Also, the aerosol. The aerosol has the direct effect because they can, for instance, absorb. Let me say that in the top of the boundary layer, you have a polluted day with black carbon. So these particles will absorb radiation, increase temperature, and so you have an stability. So you reduce precipitation because it's an indirect effect of stability, but also have the indirect effect when you produce clouds.
I
Thank
hope,
you.
Akriti, you got your answer.
Sorry?
It's okay. Pallavi was just checking with Akriti. So I think if I don't see any more questions there, Pallavi, maybe you can just conclude the session then. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.